Professor Hema, Department of Computer Science, Professor Umesh, Department of Electrical Engineering, has been there with us. I don't know for how many years. I know them for very, very long years. And they have been driving single-mindedly text to speech, speech to text in Indian language. And Professor G. Venkatesh, our own alumnus, now a professor of practice, was a CTO of Sasken and actually had done for years, and had done all the mobile phone software for 2G, 3G, 4G. Now, fortunately, he's here working with us on lots of different things.
Thanks, Professor Ashok. We are all excited about this voice technologies. I'm specifically talking about voice, but Professor Ashok, of course, is in every possible space for the last 40, 50 years. Professor GV has also contributed a lot for communication in general. So specifically, as Professor Ashok pointed out, what we are excited about is that speech is going to be the driving thing for our country, at least, right? Because reading and writing skills are very, very limited, and if you want the population to benefit, right? I mean, how do you access the internet, right? Everything is in text. So unless you can interact through voice, with an intermediate interface that converts it to text, and then you fetch the information and convert it back to voice, 70-80% of the population are not going to get the benefit of the internet, right? So how do I book, for example, a train ticket? How do I book? How do I check my piano? All these things are not very easy to do. So we believe voice is probably the most important for us, at least as a country in India. Just like we bypassed the entire wire communication, right? So we went to wireless with mobile phones. I think typing, touch, and keyboard should be very, very minimal in whatever we do in today's interaction. That is the end goal. Obviously, we are very far away from it for many reasons. Even today, the technology is fragile. Even if you take American English, which is the one that has been worked on the most, like for example, Google has 200,000 hours of transcribed data for American English. And just to give an example, some of you talked about the automatic, the vehicle that is based on, I think, for Tamil 300 hours. So 200,000 versus 300 hours. So you can see that, and English I think is about 700 hours of data. So, but still, I think it works reasonably well. So a lot of engineering has gone along with research. So what we are excited is there is a lot of potential, and we need a big community to work on this, which means the whole youngsters that are here. And as Professor Ashok pointed out, I believe that one of the things that holds us back is that we are not confident about ourselves. Oh, Google can do it. Oh, Amazon can do it. Oh, Microsoft can do it. These systems are exactly the same systems that are also built by Microsoft or Google. So the technology is same. It's open source, so you can look through all our codes. The only difference is we do not have the kind of data that they have. And once you have such large data, the compute power is another big constraint for us. So right now, we are held back by two things, which is the availability of data and the availability of compute power. But I think that is where our innovation comes. With limited data, with limited compute power, can you do better than what they are able to do? And if you compare our systems, at least for Indian languages, and HEMA, the TTS also, in fact, HEMA's TTS data is what is used by Microsoft for their TTS systems. We are comparable or even better than the Microsoft or the or the AWS systems for Indian languages. And all this is not built by me. I have 5 or 6 students which keep changing every generation. So for me, every generation is a new child, and again I have to teach them how to walk, how to run, how to eat, right, how to sleep. And then when I make them better and well equipped, they go to greener pastures, which is the industry. And then I start another cycle of another set of children coming through, which Ashok also will agree. But what we would like is once you go there, often there's a disconnect. You do not come back to your alma mater. I want many of you to go back to your school, appreciate your teachers. Have you ever gone to your school teacher and said, ma'am or sir, it was you that inspired me, right? Even my children, I say that. And that's all we require as teachers, that you come back and tell us, you you inspired us, now I'm a great man. And I don't think we need anything more than that. If you do well, I think we are also very, very happy, right? And that is what we are hoping. And if many of you do that, and you believe in yourself and you succeed, I think the whole country will succeed. That is the bottom line.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll now request Professor GV to give opening remark. We'll then follow it up.
So, I mean, there is a big difference between doing things for India and doing things what you see in the West. And the key thing is that, if you look, for example, in the West, I'm just going back a little bit so that I can relate to the current topic. When the mobile phones came, the mobile phone was the second device. Most of the people in the US already had laptops. They were accessing the internet with a laptop. And when they had the mobile phone, they were looking at mobile phone as something that would give you an experience more or less the same as laptop, but maybe a little better, right? Something like that. So compare always with the laptop, what you are getting in the laptop. So they were already accessing internet, they were already accessing internet services, and then they were going to the mobile phone. Whereas in India, we are seeing a large generation of people who have accessed the internet only on the mobile phone. They've never seen a laptop, they're never going to see a laptop, right? So they're only doing things with the mobile phone. So that's a big change. I think if you look at it from that perspective, India has brought about that change. In fact, today per capita consumption of data, mobile data, India is the highest, right, among everybody else in the world. Probably because data is so cheap in India, right? Now if you look at the next level, what Umesh was just talking, if you want to take that to the next level, which is, there are people today who have the ability to spend 10,000 rupees every 2 or 3 years and buy a smartphone, and they have the literary skills to be able to use that smartphone, which means do entries and all that stuff. They're able to do all that. But if you look at the next level of the people in the country, they don't have the ability to buy this 10,000 rupee device, right? That's one. Second is, even if they had that device, what will they do with it, right? They're unable to type in English. Definitely most of the things are in English. Browsers, you have to go and type in English. Sites are in English. If you want to type in local language, the keyboards are so clumsy, so difficult, right? So they can't do that. So we need somehow for these people to get access to the same level of internet capability that other people are able to enjoy, and that can only come, as Umesh rightly pointed out, through voice, right? And if you have voice, then the device you don't need all this big display and you don't need all this keyboard and all this nonsense, right? You can simply have voice. A very simple device, voice requires only a microphone. So you can imagine how cheap the device can be. So you can just have a 1,500 rupee device with voice, things happening on the server, and it can give you internet services on par with an iPhone, right? So that will suddenly enable this bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, to become internet enabled. That's a big boost, I think, in my view. The second thing I say is that even if you take the people who are not there, somebody else, like me, for example, I have phone, I have laptop, I have everything. Even I struggle with a text. Yesterday, for example, I opened my phone, I wanted to buy something from Big Basket. So this is Kotamali, right? What do I type? Do I type Kotamali? What spelling do I write there? Or write dhania, Hindi I can write, okay, I know Hindi. Or do I write coriander seeds? I must know it's coriander leaf. I must know all that, right? Then only I can type. I have no idea what Big Basket has entered over there. And in fact, actually, Kotamali can be spelled in English. If you look at the Tamil spelling and you look at Wikipedia also, it's Koththmally, right? That's how it's spelled. That's how in Tamil also you write like that, and then right? So what do I type? Do I write Kotha or do I Kottha? What do I type? I don't know. Now, therefore, you struggle, right? And imagine more stronger things like Perungayam or something like that. I have no idea what it is called in English. I have to go look in a dictionary, right, to figure it out. So, the point is that even for people who are educated and literate and have a laptop and have a phone and have everything, even for them, voice is a great tool. I just say Koththmally, I say Perungayam, that's it. It finds out, right, what it is. And so I think it's the ultimate user interface because it's a natural. We all have been using voice since we were children, right? We learned to type much later. We learned first to read and write and do all that, and then learned to type, and then started using the computer and everything else. So that is the second thing I want to say. The third is that this local language, local dialects, and capturing the local knowledge of the society is extremely important, right? So all these words, where do they come from? Many of the things that we buy and do are produced in the local community. So they'll have local words for it, and we need to be able to capture it. So capturing local language and all that is going to be extremely important when we get into voice as we go forward, making it hyper-local, as localized as possible, capturing local knowledge sources. That will be another thing that will be possible to do once we have voice, because voice data is much more easy in some sense to get hold of, because everybody talks. Few people write, most people talk. In fact, fewer and fewer people are writing, in fact. I can imagine a day when people stop writing. They have stopped reading already. They'll stop writing, I think. At some point in time, they'll just be making videos and talking, right? And then we have to discover things from that. That will be the data source. And that will be the future, right? So that is the other thing. But one thing that I would like to point out, and these are the speech experts, so it's more to them, is that this conversion of speech first to text and then doing text to something else, I think is a problematic thing in my view. Because already to convert speech, as it is typing text, we are making mistakes. Like Kotamali, I don't know how to type. Then you take speech and you convert, what will it convert it into? Will it convert it into KOTHA or will it convert it to KOTHTHA? What will it convert it into, right? Why don't we just take the speech and do it, right, directly? Create the large model of speech rather than large language model which is text-based, right? And that will be the next evolution step, I would feel, and then I'm sure the students can contribute and things like that.
Thank you. Hema, Professor Hema. Thank you.
I think Umesh and GV have covered various things. I would like to talk about education in particular, and I think especially women's education, with literacy levels still at 65% and women's literacy still poorer. I think these Indian language technologies will go a very long way in enabling education for women at home. You can listen to an English lecture at home in your small device if you have one, or hear the lecture on your feature phone and hopefully be able to compete. I mean, this is something that we don't talk about. I think it's important that one thing is building disruptive technologies, and then we finally have to look at how well they are used. First of all, before I wanted to first of all congratulate the team on doing this autonomous wheelchair. I think I saw it 2 months ago, and there was hardly, I mean, I was, when I saw this thing and I was surprised, I said, so quickly they have done it. So given that it's possible so quickly, I think it's possible for us to reskill or upskill, as we keep talking about. And I think it's important to bring the 70% of the people into the mainstream. I think education is a major barrier. We have ground enrollment ratio 100% today, but there is a very, very high dropout. People drop out after 4th standard or 5th standard because they're not able to understand what is going on in the class. Is it possible for us to make these use speech technologies, video technologies, whatever may be, where the lessons are explained better? You have a tutor who understands the pace of the child and teaches the child, continuously by interacting with the child on a personal basis. I think this is where I feel if we do that, they always say you educate children and you educate an entire society, an entire country for that matter. And this is something where our major focus should be, where we have tutors based on the child, because we have first generation learners, we have second generation learners, we have the people like me who are the nth or 100th generation learners, and we have to pace the curriculum with respect to the child. And I do hope, that is where I work on, and I would like to make sure that these disruptive technologies really make a very big difference to these sections of society.
Thank you. I'm sure this voice will go on and start making impact in every aspect of life, and particularly in India with local languages. We have been too caught up with 1 or 2 languages. I think it has disempowered people. Ordinary people will feel far more comfortable with voice. And that is what will happen. However, I want to bring back the focus to slightly different voice. You have seen, you will see more of it. And I just say that it has to be education, employment, all those things has to be looked at. But the theme today is impossible is possible. Celebrating our youth. The youth that we can have a direct impact is graduates of various colleges, engineering colleges. Maybe we can extend it to architecture, we can extend it to some commerce students and all that. But what we can do to 21-year, 22-year youngsters, at least because numbers, total numbers, if we take multiple departments, it will be probably 7, 8 million people. Can we at least start impacting that set of people, get them to do more? One of the objective is, if we do it right, in the next 20 years, our dream is to do 100 product technologies, which today we simply import. So I want our 3 professors to sort of say, what all technologies can we really master? Go looking forward. Voice, we are now starting to, and Indian language we will do. What all can we really master? Can we really master? Can we get kind of say next 20 years, India will master 100 technologies? Is that possible? GV, you want to start?
No, I think the wonderful thing about youth, young people, is that they're not afraid of anything. I remember a time when I was afraid. I was like, I was not afraid, right? When I was young, when we left IIT and joined Saskin and all that, we used to have all kinds of bold ideas about what can be. Many of them didn't come about. But at that time, we were totally fearless. Now, as you grow older, you learn too much and you become, I think, a little bit, you have too much knowledge, I think. And then the knowledge stops you from thinking right after some time. And the good thing about young people is that they can fearlessly go and do things even without necessarily knowing things. And sometimes it's good, because at least in AI and all these neural networks and all these new things, everything is up for grabs as far as I can see it, right? Of course, there are some technologies, but all happened in the last 10 years, right? So I think that we can really make a leapfrog and go forward, primarily because India is one of the countries which has a very large number of young people, and we have a lot of very young, bright people. I mean, generally, Indian people are very bright. We know that. They've gone and succeeded all over the world. So very young, bright people, you just have to leave them alone, as what you're trying to do here, and give them the nurturing thing and give them access to resources, and things will start happening, I believe. But I think in terms of technology areas, there are a few areas which are potentially very interesting. Of course, making small nuclear fusion reactors would be a great thing to do. It's difficult because of the materials that you need and containing and all that kind of stuff. Too much of high tech, I think. But there are things which are not necessarily high tech, which are more of an integration type of thing. Fusion reactors. Fusion reactors are going to happen. Small fusion reactors will happen in the next 10 years, I think. But just managing water resources in a much better way, managing our pollution problem. You walk around in India, you find hundreds of problems. You go to the villages, you'll find every corner you'll find some issue, right? Everything is a problem for those people there, right? So today you can't get labor in the villages. I know in Kerala that agricultural labor is just not available. They're getting all the labor from Bangladesh and other places, from West Bengal and all. People go there and they work. So what can you do to automate in the farm, which is locally thing? And there are like that, I can name 100 problems. And I know in the research park, there are many proposals that keep coming once every now and then, very, very interesting proposals. So there are many, many interesting things. I think you are much better placed than me to actually come up with these ideas. But when you have an idea, I think you should just boldly go and implement it. And if you need help, come and ask. I think that would be what I would say.
Before I hand it over to Hema, I just want to point out, when this research park was formed about 12 years back, most of you know about it. It was done as a startup. We got seed money, but beyond that, we borrowed money from the bank. We borrowed totally 400 crore rupees over the years, and we have returned all the money with interest, 600 crore rupees. But the starting point was that we want to bring 3 sets of people together. The first was the faculty, whom we already had. We had very good faculty. We said that they have the width of knowledge, and their width of knowledge will help us solve problems. Not just depth, but width. Depth is often known. Width is not understood. But the faculty, by and large, have width of knowledge. The number 2, we said the industry person, who actually knows how to convert a prototype into a commercial product. We at IIT, professors don't know. Most others don't know. They play a very important role. They will convert it into commercial product or tell you that this cannot be converted to commercial product. So that is a very important role, because we wanted to create commercial products, not just demo sites. Not just demonstration is the first step. That is what is done. Converting into, if you saw work was done by Hema Murthy and Umesh, the Bhashini work. We are converting into products. And that's our specialty. The third that we even then said, and we need these youngsters, and we said from all colleges, because these young people at 22 do not know that it cannot be done. Do not know that it cannot be done. By the time they are 35 or 40, the first thing is cannot be done. And I see it all the time. I bring in senior people, they say it cannot be done. I bring in any expert, it cannot be done. You throw the youngsters, how they get it done, we don't know. Fortunately, I'm not that knowledgeable compared to all my colleagues. So basically, I also believe, I actually also believe that it can be done. So that can be done is the key issue, because that, then there is nothing to lose. You take risk, something will happen. I think with that, I'll ask Hema Murthy back to this question. Impossible is possible. What can youth do in India? Can we create 100 technologies in the country over the next 20 years where India can be the leaders?
Yeah, I think I agree with what you say. I still remember the online test-in tutorial, which we thought will never work. And it was done by somebody who was 10th standard pass, And we developed this technology where we said we'll enable kids to pass the examination. This was done 2004 to 8. Ashok's technology on TSL was available there. And we used to run classes from 6 to 10 in the evening. And this was all for first generation learners, and who even the tuition teacher will not teach because the person comes from a lower caste. Okay? And we ran this in about 200 kiosks in Tamil Nadu. And I must tell you, our pass percentage went up from 45% to 89%. It was an amazing success. I mean, it was a very, it leveraged very, very simple technology, some XML here and some little bit of software engineering, internet. We also got CSR funding. And the point is, it's not that, it's also a myth that people think, we're developing technology so there's no research. We don't realize because of the localization, there's so much research that you have to do. We published papers on this work. I was even invited to Denmark to give a talk on this exercise that we did. It was an amazing success story. And much the same way I feel, all these youngsters, I always say one thing about these youngsters is they are risk takers. And they are very transactional today. They'll come here, they will do the work, and they will, of course, looking at returns. What is the return on investment that they get? I think that is very different about today's youngsters compared to what I was as a youngster. There's always this, if your boss said this, it must be right. Now they don't do that. They say, sorry, I don't agree with what you say, which is a very, very good positive thing about youngsters. And I think 2029, maximum number of youth in our country, I hope you upskill, reskill, and make these 100 technologies, which Ashok is saying, not in the next 20 years, but in the next coming 6 years, if possible.
Umesh?
I think they have covered most of the things. So I just want to mention that coming from an academic background, one of the things I've realized is that you learn more by sharing what you know with others, right? The more you try to teach others, the more you learn. And this is something that I feel is very important for the young peer group, right? So having come here, right, you have learned something, but you do some, improvement over this, you feel excited, but that's built on, shoulders of many other people who have worked on it. And when you start explaining and helping others, then the entire community benefits. So this is something that I find is little more less now than when it was, let's say, 20 years back. Everyone works in their own cocoon, they do their own work, but they don't share, right? Peer is the best way of learning from each other. So what you teach each other, you share your knowledge, that's the best way. See, we open source everything. Everything that I do, everything that Hema does is on the public domain. You can see every code of ours, right? Every model is available on the internet, right? But and I mean, we are not like, I mean, that's the difference between an academic and a research and a company, right? Companies try to restrict. I mean, if I want to talk to Apple, they want to talk to us, we have to sign an NDA for them. They want to talk to us, but I have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, right? That's not the way that India can progress. I think the more we share with each other, especially the young peers, right? They have to learn and then share it with their fellow students when they go back, and try to improve on that. Like whatever you did in an internship here, in your 4th year project, if you improve on that, and we are open for all facilities that you need. And Professor Ashok, I'm sure, is going to provide you all that. You have to build on that, right? And unless you build on it, then only you can start thinking, can I make it better? Can I make it world class, right? And that is something that should not hold you back. We can do it. That, as he says, you have the knowledge, you have the support system, and Ashok's community is there for you to help out, right? So it's for you to grab this and go up. And the other thing I find is, in all of this, like he pointed out, this new age deep learning AI technologies, quickly you can do something, okay? That should not give you a false sense that you know everything. That arrogance is something that you should avoid, okay? The depth that he talks about, the foundations, the fundamentals are very, very important. You run a toolkit and you get something, doesn't mean you have solved the problem or you know the solution to all problems. You have to go back and look at also the depth. How is the system working? That curiosity should still be there. And only if you think, why is it working? Why is it not working now? Why is it working then? That's when I think you learn best. And I think that sharing is another important thing, apart from whatever they have said. I find that is something lacking. And unless you share, you never learn. Okay, so.
Thank you. Thank you. I think excellent. Before I open it up for audience to comment, ask questions, I want to sort of say one thing. So I think what he pointed out is very, very important. First, when we get these youngsters and we ask them to build things quickly, it gets them excited. I think it's very important. Most of the time, and I think all the teachers have found, that we go on trying to make the lectures as interesting as possible in the classes the students are not even attending or sleeping. So this is by and large true, and not today. It was true when I was student 50 years back. So it is not something new. When we get them excited by actually building things, even what you are saying, relatively simple things, they suddenly feel good about it. And then they want to ask questions, but why does it work? And we help them ask that question. And then they go and attend the classes. So what have we done at the research park? We get them to start building things and then say, now go and take at least one course every semester at IIT Madras. Do 2 courses and then register yourself for MS. Our whole program, which Raj and Rima is driving, is exactly on that. Get them to become part-time masters or maybe PhD tomorrow to get the depth. And not everybody needs to get that depth, but there has to be a certain number of people who need to get the depth. A lot of people can do at a level, and some get some depth, some get more depth. In fact, I tell, even if you do 2-3 courses, decent courses at IIT, even if you don't get MS, it still makes you learn some depth. So that is the whole conceptualization of how the research park and part-time MS, and I know I've been bugging you, get these people to do part-time MS, motivate them, because each person you are bringing them, you are teaching them from depth to actual delivery. That depth to delivery is what, from all the way from R&D, basic R&D to commercialization has been the motto of Research Park, and we have been trying to do that. So with that, I will open it up. Questions, comments, anything. Start.
I'm James, Pro Vice Chancellor of Karnia University, Coimbatore. When I read this impossible is possible, I find, I studied engineering half a century back in NIT Surathkal, and there used to be some theory classes, some practicals. I think Ramurthy, who was here, was teaching me structural engineering at that point of time. I found that there was no practical implication taught to us. But what Professor Ashok did was, I got 6 students of my university here now. They're not the better of the best. We randomly selected 6 students, sent them here. And I'm told that they are the best. Then I was thinking, why don't we make some more selection and send them over here? If all of them cannot be sent over here, why don't the venture go over there and then train a few faculty members? And I'm sure that you will find 50%. I think we have got about 220 students, 2,200 students in computer science and engineering alone. Forget about ECE and EE and all that. So if 50% of them can be trained the way they are trained here, I'm sure that at the end of the day, not 50 which we are talking about, 500 or 5,000 innovations can come out of this type of venture. Why I said that the impossible is possible is, I never thought that these students will become professional the way they are today. I had an interaction with them here that demonstrated what they were talking about. They were talking about the hashtag, and they went on explaining to me various aspects and how with 20 minutes you can have it. I was just thinking of the Cochin metro, which I am familiar with. Hi, if it can be so fast, everybody will go for that option. So I think, I mean, impossible is possible for Professor Ashok bringing these 50 students here and grooming them and making them professional. And I come from an institution which has the name Karunya, which means compassion. And all that what you were talking here, when I have a slight problem with my ears, okay? When you were talking about hearing, when you were talking about speech therapy, all that when you were talking, what I was thinking of is that serving the humanity. Yeah. This is one lesson we will have to teach the younger generation. The word used is new gen, whatever you want to say. This is what we will have to teach them.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.